A few people will continue to join us here over the next few minutes. I want to maximize the time that our presenters have to talk to you about their research today. So I want to start right on time, and I know most people, or a lot of people, certainly me, have another 1 o'clock commitment. So promise to be finished before then. This marks the wrap up of what's been a fantastic week on campus for Research and Scholarship Days. So many events held both virtually and in person on campus. The breadth and depth of the scholarship presented on campus this week has just been fantastic. I was particularly pleased to see the student posters on Main Street on Tuesday this week. So nice to see that back happening in person. Would prefer to be doing this event in person today, but we're inching ever closer to having these events in person. So thanks for your patience as we continue to do this in an online format. The Office of Research Scholarship and Community Engagement is absolutely delighted to be announcing the 5th annual Research and Recognition Awards. 5 years has gone by quite quickly here since we inaugurated these awards. They recognize the outstanding achievements of our MRU scholars at all career stages and across all disciplines. The awards were created to celebrate full-time faculty members at Mount Royal who are making absolutely extraordinary contributions to their respective academic professions and fields, our students, and our connections to community. The awards are designed to recognize the diversity of disciplinary research and scholarship, and they capture the full spectrum of activities that we embrace and celebrate at Mount Royal as part of scholarly endeavors. By celebrating our faculty members, these awards support and enhance what is a growing research culture at MRU. Each of our awardees today will receive a framed certificate to commemorate the honor of being selected as one of this year's recipients. Before I continue and get to the most important part of the presentation here, I want to extend a special thanks to everyone who nominated a colleague or participated in the adjudication process. In particular, I want to recognize that the selection committee this year was chaired by Lisa Choi. She was joined by Rob Boschman, Alia Dasani, Carolyn McDonald-Harker, Felix Noishi, Andrea Dawson, and Alice Swaby. I sat in on those meetings. I'm a non-voting member, but I sat in on those meetings, and I know how difficult it is to make these final selections. The quality of all of the nomination packages that we received this year, absolutely outstanding. And as much fun as the committee members had getting to know more about their colleagues' research, it's always a challenge to make those final decisions. So thanks to all of you for doing that. And I also want to thank all the nominees. We know how much time it takes to put together an application package. We greatly appreciate the time and effort that goes into those, and hope that a compilation of them, regardless of whether they were successful in the current cycle, will be useful. It's always helpful to be compiling that information and to be using it in other contexts, as well as potentially moving it forward to next year if you weren't selected in the current year. The run of the show today will consist of me introducing you to each of the awardees, and then providing them with a very short opportunity, almost cruelly short, to highlight what are extraordinary research accomplishments. And then I'm hoping that we have time for a couple or three questions after each presentation. So if you just want to raise your hand, I'll call on you to ask questions or make comments at the end of each presentation. We have 4 awardees to recognize today, so I'll jump right into that part of the program. Our first award is the Undergraduate Research and Scholarship Supervision Award. And this award celebrates meaningful and sustained commitment to enriching the student experience at Mount Royal by providing mentorship, training, and opportunities to participate in and disseminate original research and scholarship. It really is one of the hallmarks of a Mount Royal student experience here. The awardee in this category has to demonstrate, impact of supervision on student research and scholarship, and it identifies a substantial contribution to the growth and development of MRU students' research and scholarship competencies. And we generally see awardees in this category having students to go on and excel in their profession, often go on to graduate school and other research careers. I'm delighted to introduce you to this year's awardee in this category, Dr. Leah Hamilton. She's a professor in our Bissett School of Business, and she's cross-appointed to the Department of Psychology. Leah's played a significant role in expanding the institutional's capacity to provide mentorship, training, and opportunities for undergraduate student researchers. She was also involved in the team that advanced the idea for having these research recognition awards. So I'm particularly delighted to see Leah reach this part of the process. She was co-designer of the Bachelor of Business Administration Honors Program and coordinated it since its inception in 2015. Her nomination package was replete with glowing comments from students about just how much she has impacted their time here at Mount Royal and advanced the role of research in their overall tenure as an undergraduate student. So please join me in congratulating Leah Hamilton, and Leah, will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Mike, for your kind words. I'm really honored to win this award. And I want to thank the honor students who nominated me and the students and faculty members who supported my application. And I also want to thank the adjudication committee for this recognition. It really does mean the world to me. I'll try to keep my remarks brief. I'm actually in the middle of a hiring committee, trying to make sure we hire the next emerging scholar winner. So I apologize that I can't stay for the entire event. But congratulations to all of the award winners that are here today. Yeah, supervising undergrad student researchers is the most joyful part of my job. And I know many of you here today will agree with me. Hearing that a student got into grad school or law school or was chosen to be valedictorian, these are just the happiest moments in this job. And the news always seems to come at the best time, like when we really need it. As Mike said, most of my work has been done through the BBA honors program, which I co-designed back in 2014 and have been coordinating ever since. And I typically supervise a couple of honor students each year. Although this year I had 3, I don't recommend that many, but, and I've also been teaching the research methods class and coordinating the honors program, which means I get to work with every single honor student that comes through the BBA program. And it's a lot of fun. Our cohorts are fairly small, but they're awesome. So when I thought about what I wanted to say today, I started just by reflecting on what I've learned from these students. So I asked myself, what have they taught me over the years and how have they shaped me into the supervisor that I am today? And I guess the first thing that I've learned from these students is to really see the whole person in front of me. So yes, I know them in their capacity as undergraduate student researchers, but they really are people with big, messy lives outside of school. And I think understanding who they are and how they bring their life experiences to bear on their research is important. So they've really taught me to see them as people first, students second, and student researchers third. And they've taught me to really listen to them in order to see and understand who they are and the kind of sort of tailored supervision that they will need to succeed. The second thing that they've taught me is that I think it's way more important to teach them the soft skills associated with being a researcher than to impart the technical skills. I mean, you can sort of learn how to use SPSS or R by watching YouTube videos nowadays. But, I hope to teach these students how to listen, how to go and build trust in community, how to be a good collaborator, how to work ethically, how to be compassionate, these types of skills. And I think these are the most transferable skills that students can learn on their undergraduate research journeys. And the third thing these students have taught me is to model the way, to advocate for them and alongside them in their communities, to advocate for them as student researchers by trying to get them funding and supports. Thank you, Mike, because I'm always coming to you. And to advocate for them when they need to navigate complex systems at MRU or beyond MRU. And I think the last thing these students have taught me is that in many instances, these become lifelong relationships. So over the last, I guess, week or two, I've got to celebrate like 4 really awesome things with past and current students. And I just want to share them with you because I think they really represent the joy in supervising undergrad students. One of my former honor students, Noor Khan, who actually came to one of our Celebrate events like years ago and co-presented, she successfully defended her master's thesis at University of Calgary. And she reached out to me a few days before her defense looking for some sort of words of wisdom and support. So that was really exciting. My current honor student, she just finished up in December, Quinn Pelland, was selected as a National Council on Undergraduate Research 2022 home competition finalist for the research she completed for her honors. And she also won 2nd place at nationals as the captain of our awesome volleyball team. And then my former honor student, Harsimran Jandu, came to campus to really happily and tearfully hand deliver to me an invitation to her wedding. And it was just such a beautiful, happy moment to be part of. And then this morning, I found out that my honor student, Anna Reimer, was one of the winners of the 2022 Research and Scholarship Days Presentation Awards. And so I share these moments with you just to kind of tell you that these are the bright moments that keep me going and remind me of what is the most important thing to focus on in our job, and that is our students. So the accomplishments that I just mentioned are the students alone, and I know I was only one of many awesome mentors at MRU who helped them along the way, but I'm really happy I got to be part of their journey. So I want to thank the funders that have helped me support undergraduate researchers, including SSHRC, the Government of Alberta, the Institute for Environmental Sustainability, and Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. And most importantly, I thank you again for the award and accept it with much gratitude for all I've learned from working with Anna and Quinn and Simran, Noor, Carolina, Bailey, Anya, and so many others along the way. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Leah. I know we're holding you from another meeting, but we'll try to keep you captive here just for a couple more minutes. Anyone have any questions or comments for Leah? Otherwise, she goes directly back to a hiring committee. Give her a break here. Scott, go ahead.
Thanks, Leah. Congratulations. So well deserved. You talked about the ways in which the things that you've learned from your students. I'm wondering about how your own research practice has been altered or affected or improved as a consequence of your work with undergraduate students generally, I guess, or maybe more specifically with your honor students.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'm a community engaged researcher. I work with a lot of newcomer and refugee communities in the settlement sector. So I think I really learned how to incorporate undergraduate students within this work. And so that's really changed me. And I think when I sit on sort of adjudication committees, like for New Frontiers, or I'm about to do one for SSHRC, I can see these applications in a different way because I think researchers automatically incorporate grad students, and these funding agencies are used to seeing like graduate students embedded in these applications. But I think it's changed the way I see them because I really see a role for undergraduate researchers. So being able to advocate for that, I think outside of MRU and sort of the national research landscape has been really exciting and important to me. But yes, working with these students has absolutely changed me in the way that I do my work. And I think in the community, they're really excited to see you bring undergraduate students. Like, they're really welcoming to the idea of having these students come to meetings and things like that. So I hope that answers your question.
Other questions for Leah? Leah, maybe I'll just follow up a little bit on what Scott has started there, and often maybe I'll put this in the context of the fact that you're in a hiring committee in a few seconds here. There's often skepticism from incoming faculty members coming from research-intensive institutions or research-intensive backgrounds that undergraduate students can be incorporated into a part of a faculty member's long-term research program. What would you say to a candidate who asks a question like that in an interview process about building on what Scott has asked about the role and the ability not just to provide the student with a valuable experience, but for them to contribute to your ongoing research program?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can do a lot. I think, yes, we have to train them, but our students are so capable and so enthusiastic and passionate about doing this work. And that, if you invest some time into training them and getting them the supports they need, and even connecting them with the library and all the resources on campus, that they can do amazing things. I mean, I'm thinking about my student Anna that just won this award that was announced today, and she was able to run really complicated moderated mediation analyses on her own. And so they're so capable, and I think getting to know them and their strengths, and putting some time into the mentorship and training will always pay off, and that they often can do things that we would typically only see from, let's say, master's students. So I really see our students as very capable and able to contribute to our work in meaningful ways.
Great, thanks for that. And we're hearing more and more from other institutions how excited they are to get our graduates moving into their graduate programs, because they're just so well prepared. Again, congratulations. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're not able to stay with us right till the end. Greatly appreciate the time you were able to give us here today. All right, I'm going to move to the next award category, and this is for the Emerging Scholar Award. This award celebrates excellence in research and scholarship for a faculty member with an appointment at the assistant professor or senior lecturer at Mount Royal University. It focuses on research and scholarship that demonstrates impact and originality by producing new knowledge in their discipline and field, and shows promise for the development of a long-term research program. The awardee in this category today is Dr. Michael Asmussen. Mike's an assistant professor in biology in the Faculty of Science, and he's a trailblazer of early research success. His research program focuses on how the foot and ankle are essential for humans to walk and run. While seemingly simple movements, although not for me, the execution of these tasks is complex and requires coordination across nervous, muscular, and skeletal systems. Mike's research seeks to understand the structure, function, and neural control during locomotion in healthy, injured, and diseased states, with the end goal of translating outcomes into innovative healthcare solutions. Mike has been with us since 2019, and I think he's landed just about every award or funding opportunity that's available to a new researcher, including an NSERC grant. He's a Canada Research Chair holder, Tier 2 Research Chair holder, recently secured a Canada Foundation for Innovation grant. He has externally funded postdoctoral fellows through a MyTax Elevate Award, and has been recognized through other internal awards here, including this one. We're absolutely thrilled to have Mike as a member of the Mount Royal community here. Absolutely, I think, limitless research potential ahead of him in his career. Please join me in congratulating Mike Asmussen on this award, and we'll turn the floor over to Mike.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Mike. You make me sound a lot better than I think I actually am. So, but I'll just start to present my screen. I just have a few slides that talk a bit about my research program. And can everyone see the slides at the moment?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And so the research that I do is on foot and ankle stability, as Mike had mentioned, or as I've given the acronym, FAST research. And I would just like to congratulate all the other awardees today, and also just want to give a thanks to the ORSCE for the support during my research program startup here at MRU, as well as the faculty of Science and Technology for the support they've given. And also a really special thanks to the Department of Biology. The support, guidance, and mentorship has really been paramount to starting off my career successfully here at MRU, both teaching and research. So why do I look at the foot and the ankle? And the reason that I do is that if anyone's ever maybe experienced a foot and ankle issue, that they know, or some sort of injury, they know that they can be quite difficult to walk for a period of weeks or months, and you could be sidelined as a result of it. Or maybe this past winter that you've walked on an icy path and maybe experienced a slip or fall because of an inadequate interaction of your foot with the ground underneath you. Or maybe you got out to the slopes and put on a ski boot and realize how difficult it is to walk from point A to point B, or go down a set of stairs because of that rigid foot and ankle. And so what I look at is really the role of that foot and ankle and our ability to walk and run. And so although it might seem pretty simple, as Mike had mentioned, that every time your foot contacts the ground, that you do experience this large force that acts on that foot. And you must be able to balance your body over top of that single point of contact on the ground. And the analogy that I like to use of why it's important to focus on the foot and ankle is that if you think of the game of Jenga, where you're required to take a block from the structure and place it on top, that as you remove more and more blocks from the base, that it becomes quite difficult to pull or remove blocks without the structure toppling over. And so if you were given the option to pull from these two structures, you'd likely pick the one on the left versus the one on the right because of more blocks or more stability at the base. So very similar that when the reason I look at the foot and the ankle is to try to find ways to improve that stabilization at the foot and the ankle to make sure that people can stay upright and stable while they are walking. More from an academic and clinical standpoint, the reason the foot and ankle is of interest is that if you experience an injury of the foot or the ankle, that you're 5 times more likely to get re-injured. Older adults who have foot and ankle issues have an increased fall risk, and there's multiple secondary outcomes associated with the falls, such as a hip fracture or concussion. And there are a number of neural conditions that these individuals have foot and ankle issues. For example, those who experience a stroke, an individual with peripheral neuropathy from MS or diabetes that can ultimately influence their foot and ankle sensation and function that impairs their ability to walk and their overall mobility. And so to tackle this, the understanding of the foot and the ankle, that I use a 3-pillar approach. The first pillar being understanding stable locomotion, apply this to a clinical environment, and also collaborate with community and industry partners. And although these 3 areas are distinct, that they do overlap and inform one another. In this first pillar, the research that I conduct is try to understand the function of all the muscles and tendons and bones and how they interact with one another to be able to perform tasks like walking and running. And so what I do is use a combination of experimental techniques that assess the muscle activity or how much force your muscles produce while performing these tasks like walking or running. And I measure the motion of bones with things like reflective markers that you'd see to create video games or animations in movies. And I use some clever techniques such as 3D printed footwear to try to mimic what it's like to walk in a stable versus unstable environment and see how we activate our muscles differently to compensate for these changes in stabilization within the environment. And so although your foot seems like a very simple structure, that it is really complicated, that there's 26 bones, 33 joints, and over 100 tendons, ligaments, muscles, and tendons that all have to work together. And so I think I have a long career ahead trying to figure out how all those structures work together to allow a person to stay upright. In this second pillar, that some of the groups that I intend to translate this work to are individuals with chronic ankle instability who've experienced an ankle joint injury and then have frequent re-injuries because of issues with some of the passive structures like ligaments that stabilize the joints. also individuals with individuals who are a bit older and have foot and ankle issues, that define ways to improve stabilization of that structure to make sure that they can remain mobile throughout their life. And very similar to those who have a neural condition such as stroke or peripheral neuropathy, and find ways to stabilize that structure to maintain mobility. And actually, I do work collaboratively with researchers at U of C and here at MRU, so Dr. Jared Fletcher, who's on the call, as well as Dr. Renita Minocha, to understand foot and ankle stability in individuals with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so the area that to try to improve stability in these individuals, the ways that I tend to do that is to develop biofeedback systems of which you can inform a person of which muscles they need to activate to try to improve stabilization of the foot and ankle. And if they're unable to do that, to develop stability aids, such as this exoskeleton that's seen on the right-hand side, to try to compensate for any lost muscle function to provide stabilization of that structure. And I also work with community and industry partners for this line of research. So I work with a local neurologist, Dr. Scott Jarvis, to create foot and ankle assessment devices in individuals with MS, and also collaborate with industry partners from more of a human performance standpoint of how to optimize muscle function and footwear to improve locomotor ability. And so my research on foot and ankle stability, or FAST research, uses this three-pillar approach. And I've really had this great supportive environment here at MRU that has involved a number of undergraduate students. And I'm excited to continue down this path to try to address that complicated problem of all those structures within the foot and ankle and how they play a role in keeping you upright while you walk or run. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mike. You did a great job of condensing a lot of information there into a short period of time. Thanks so much. I know it's so hard to to be constrained like we're constraining you here. Questions for Mike? Well, maybe I'll kick things off here, Mike, and then we'll see if anyone else has any. I'm just wondering, you know, as a researcher, when you approach these kinds of problems, you have a set of ideas about how things are going to unfold. I'm just wondering if you can describe any kind of particular aha moments or surprises for you in the work that you've conducted so far.
Yeah, probably one of that image I showed with the 3D printed footwear and people running on the treadmill. What was kind of interesting from that research is we were actually studying a muscle that is one that you would typically not feel or even understand where it's located in your lower limb. So if you go and touch your shin bone, and there's a muscle that's right behind that, known as the tibialis posterior. That muscle is oftentimes really understudied because it's hard to actually measure from it. You need to actually place electrodes deep into the muscle to record its activity. And one of the really aha moments was finding how important that muscle was to controlling your ability to stay upright when experiencing perturbations or basically these instabilities from the environment. And so we had a number of different hypotheses going into that experiment. And it actually went a bit against what we initially proposed, and so that's really kind of created a bit of shift in the direction of the research that I like to do. And so that was one of the aha moments that was really cool recently that has changed a bit of the trajectory that I would like to go in. Yeah, so that's one of them. And also, I guess a little bit of an aha moment or a neat little change is actually a quick conversation that myself and Dr. Jared Fletcher had of talking about a bit of a research project student that was working with him. And we had a conversation, saw some overlap in how we might be able to put a grant together. And Jared led that. And we were with Dr. Renita Minocha. And we put together the grant and we're successful. And now that's actually created, once again, just how just a quick, small conversation can really make large changes in research trajectory, which is kind of neat to see, of just having that interaction can make large changes.
Thanks. Thank you, Leah. Mike, that's thanks for the first big aha moment. Those ones are always really exciting, and the collaborative nature of the work and how a side conversation can lead to a new project and a new discovery, a new grant is so critical. I'm certainly looking forward to having people back more fully on campus to facilitate that kind of interaction. Mohammed.
Thank you. Yes, I do have a question, Mike. Hi, my name is Mohammed. I'm in the Faculty of Nursing, School of Nursing. I'm midwifery. My question is related. I saw in one of your slides, you said that you also explore muscular issues in patients with a stroke. My question is, I know that stroke is a problem with the upper motor neurons, and the muscles are kind of lower. So how do you prevent the muscle atrophy, knowing that a stroke is a upper motor neuron problem, and your focus is on the lower part of the body where the impulse from the upper motor neuron is not reaching?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good question to think about of how do you prevent things like muscle atrophy in that scenario. So I think not myself, but what other people, will do is some sort, if they have an inability, say, to walk because that muscle's lost function, is try to use one of those devices, as I showed, like the robotic exoskeleton, where they start to actually start with initial support and then taper off the amount of, say, input that comes from that device, and slowly, with enough effort and things combining with biofeedback, to say, okay, focus on this muscle, although it might not be creating movement of the foot, just show this is actually activation of that muscle, and slowly over time, with maybe repeated exposure to that biofeedback of, okay, this muscle is being active. It might not be moving the foot, but look, we're seeing progressive improvements, and that might be a way to prevent things like atrophy with the assisted training with tapering, as well as these biofeedback systems.
Perfect. Okay. So one follow-up question: are these devices available in the hospital, or still under experimentation?
They're not as, let's say, widespread availability, but there are some, say, larger like clinical labs that have these devices. I think a local mat is one of them that allows for a bit more assistive movement. And so but I think now with like robotics really developing over the past decade or so, that they are becoming more readily available and also a little less bulky. So people are developing what's known as soft exoskeletons, so not relying on these big rigid devices, but more soft, light, compliant parts that can move and help with movement.
Perfect. Thank you very much, and congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Lisa, I think we have time for one more question here.
Yeah, Mike, once again, congratulations, excellent work. Just follow up similar to Mohammed's question. So now your research had further finding, and how does it really connect and make it realistic in a clinical setting?
Yeah, and so the one researcher that I work with on that project, that they're actually also a podiatrist, and so it's been it's been nice to get actually working with that individual, Dr. Jayashni Maharaj, that having that clinical perspective is really good, because sometimes when we start to think about the research question that we're asking, that we try to take it a step further and say, well, if this worked out and this was true, what would that ultimately do to maybe help inform clinical practice or rehabilitation or intervention? And if we can't actually see that pathway to get there, that sometimes we start to question, maybe we need to fine tune something or add something in so that it just makes that knowledge translation step a lot better. And I just think also just having, it was really, it was convenient that she's a researcher as well as a clinician, but I think just having, that clinical input from researchers or more people who are maybe not even involved in research and at that level, is just bringing them in at the initial research design phase rather than just trying to apply it at the end is really important, because you can see that path earlier. If you drew it too far at the end, sometimes it feels like putting kind of a square peg into a round hole.
Thanks for the question, Lisa. Mike, just really briefly, there's a question in the chat from Nick, and he's asking about the balance in dealing with postdocs and undergrads in your lab. Any kind of comments on working at kind of both ends of that scale without having masters and PhD students in the middle, at least MRU was?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, great question there, Nick. And it is an interesting balance, and it's one I'm kind of learning on the fly. Starting up here, there was I did not know if that was possible to even have postdoctoral fellows. Is the ability to be supervised here at MRU, and then through the MyTax funding that has been possible. And I actually think it does have an interesting, nice balance, because for the postdoctoral fellow, they can focus on the research, but then also get some experience with supervision, and I would say more meaningful supervision versus with an undergraduate student versus that of, say, a postdoctoral fellow supervising a PhD, which kind of seems a bit counterintuitive, because the PhD is trying to be an independent investigator and the postdoc's also an independent investigator. So I think although it is a unique scenario, I think it's actually one that could be leveraged, and it's something maybe really beneficial that MRU has an advantage over some of the other institutions, or say maybe larger research groups that only have postdocs and PhDs. Now, the balance is definitely an interesting one, because with the postdoc, you're trying to create a very specialized question that's going to be really specific to the field. And you just have to make sure that you don't get lost in making it too difficult of the questions that you bring then to the undergraduate students when you're trying to make this tie between relevance to the postdoc's work and what the undergraduate's interest would be. So definitely some balancing there. But I think with having undergraduates and postdocs work together, it creates a bit more of a richer environment to have not just one voice of mentorship, but having this combination of postdoctoral fellow input to the undergraduate students. And even the other day, just working with an undergraduate student, the postdoctoral fellow came in and we did the presentation and got feedback from both of us, which I think is, if I wish I could have had that experience when I was in my undergrad.
Great, thanks so much, Mike, and congratulations again. I will move on to the next award, and this awardee is unable to join us today, so I'll spend a little longer on the introduction. I would far sooner you be hearing directly from the awardee, but I will share with you why we were so excited to make this award. This is the Knowledge Mobilization Award, and it recognizes a researcher or scholar's innovative and sustained efforts to extend original research and scholarly contributions to diverse audiences. It should include sustained knowledge mobilization activities targeting quality academic journals, but also external audiences, including practitioners, policymakers, and the broader public. I'm delighted to announce that the awardee in this category is Dr. Kimberly Williams. Kim's an associate professor and program coordinator of Women's and Gender Studies in the Department of Humanities, and is an award-winning author, feminist scholar, community activist, and a passionate public speaker. Kim teaches introductory and advanced courses in queer, trans, and sexuality studies, transnational feminisms, global gender issues, critical masculinity studies, and indigenous and decolonial feminisms. Her career so far has spanned 16 years, and it's really characterized by sustained efforts to extend those scholarly contributions to broad audiences. She prioritizes publishing works and disseminating information through a variety of media that are openly accessible and accessible to students, practitioners, policymakers, and the general public. As an example, a fun example that I like is that starting in summer 2017, Kim initiated a historical walking tour called Booze, Broads, and Brothels, and it explores people, places, and politics of Calgary's early consensual adult sex industry. Kim offers the tour by donation, and she gives all the proceeds to Shift Calgary. It's the city's only rights-based provider of harm reduction services to adult sex workers. Kim is currently working on turning that tour into a free self-guided GPS application and a permanent digital public history archive with open access. So it points to the way she translates what she's doing into a topic that's of great interest to the city. Her most recent book is called Stampede: Misogyny, White Supremacy, and Settler Colonialism. That title kind of speaks for itself, but she examines the colonial roots of the Calgary Stampede, covering complex topics and exposing the often negative consequences behind this annual event. Stampede was among the top-selling nonfiction works in Alberta last July. And on a very different kind of project, in 2016, during the Fort McMurray wildfires, she initiated a project called Managing Pets During Disasters, and she examined emergency and disaster management protocols around family pets that get left behind in these kinds of mandatory evacuation programs. She says that reaching practitioners and policymakers was her primary goal in that project. The full report from that work is currently featured by the United Nations Office of Disaster Risk Reduction on their website. So although Kim is not with us here physically, or at least, or even virtually, definitely want to pass on congratulations. If you see Kim, be sure to pat her on the back and congratulate her for this award. The next award, and the final one in our presentations today, is the Research and Scholarship Excellence Award. And this is at the other end of the career spectrum from the Emerging Scholar Award. It celebrates excellence in research and scholarship by a tenured faculty member, and it focuses on a sustained program of research and scholarship with original and innovative contributions to the field of knowledge of the recipient. The nominees have to demonstrate the impact of their work on other researchers and scholars, other professionals, and the community or field of practice, and demonstrate leadership, impact, and research and scholarship as recognized by their peers at local, national, and international levels. And I am very excited to announce that the awardee in this category this year is Dr. Mohammed El-Hussein. He's a professor in the School of Nursing and Midwifery here at Mount Royal, and is a significant contributor to the profession of nursing and the scholarship of teaching and learning, especially as it relates to the training of and education of nurses. Mohammed's research focuses on understanding how students learn and creating strategies to support learning of complex concepts. Care of older adults is another pillar of his program of research, and he explores barriers and facilitators to recognizing delirium and dementia in acute care settings. To support clinical education, Mohammed created and validated tools to better evaluate student performance in practical courses. In addition to generating relevant knowledge, his scholarship has yielded several knowledge translation vehicles to simplify the interpretation and the application of clinical practice guidelines. Please join me in congratulating Mohammed El-Hussein on this great accomplishment. Mohammed, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mike, for this nice introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start by first thanking the committee because I know they received many applications and they had to work hard in order to select the awardees. I'm going also to present my PowerPoints in order to share with you briefly my program of research. Oops, just trying to share here. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep, it's just coming up.
Okay. Okay, so what you just mentioned, Mike, and what I have been doing over the last probably 15 to 20 years, I'd like to summarize it in this one slide. This slide I inherited from my PhD studies while working with Dr. Robert Stebbins at the University of Calgary. This is basically the roadmap that guides my inquiry. Even though I have different lenses in my mind to guide whether I'm going to do qualitative or quantitative research, but this is this is the map that I go back to now time and again in order to check the progress of each project I'm engaging with. I am a hunter. I hunt for good ideas. And I implement qualitative research because I believe that all research starts with individual observation. And then through the logic of inductive reasoning, I put that observation in a qualitative method and try to find answers to those interesting questions. Afterwards, because my background is also in grounded theory, I try to conceptualize what I describe, because I know conceptualization takes us a very long way and it has a lasting effect on both myself, the learner, and the patient. So as you can see here, like my program of research focuses basically on students and on patients. So if you start early at the exploration and description, I try to explore how students think by focusing on their clinical reasoning processes. And I followed these students after they became RNs in the hospital to also compare their clinical reasoning processes while being students and after graduating. I also, through grounded theory study, developed concepts that led to the formation of a tool. And that tool was later on tested for validity and reliability. And I was able to publish that tool, and now we use it at Montreal University. Other universities are interested in it, and I'm also in the process of hopefully translating that tool into a smartphone application to be used by clinicians or clinical facilitators at the bedside with the students. You spoke about clinical practice guidelines, Mike, and it gives me a great pleasure that after I finished my nurse practitioner degree and started practicing, I was able to identify a huge barrier, which is how do we apply these clinical practice guidelines at the bedside? How do we interpret these guidelines at the bedside? This lack of interpretation triggered in me something to find a way to simplify those clinical practice guidelines. So I started simplifying them and getting them published in a simplified form in the respective journals. So I published in general nursing journals, I published in nurse practitioner journals, and recently I'm publishing with physician assistant journals. And you will be pleased to know that in my publications, I'm also involving students, because also in our undergraduate program in nursing, our students do not have a lot of opportunities to publish. So far, I've published in high impact journals more than 20 publications. Publications went to journals that even after I finished my PhD, I was dreaming of getting published in those journals. Now our second and third year students, when I work with them, we get published there. So this reinforces what Leah said earlier, that our students has great potentials. Some of them actually are PhD material, just finishing their undergraduate degrees. So this is basically, like I said, my roadmap. This experience in research has recently culminated in me being invited to take part in a project with a group of researchers at the University of Calgary, University of Toronto, University of British Columbia. And this project was submitted for funding, for CHR funding, and we were lucky to receive initially $218,000 and later on an additional $50,000 from the Institute of Aging, because our research focuses on older adults. The driver for our research is this question. We were trying to explore the experiences and needs of informal caregivers of fracture patients in a rehabilitation setting. And so what were the triggers? What were the incentives of doing this research? After doing a literature review, we found that more than 131 Canadians sustain fragility fracture each year. A fragility fracture, just by definition, occurs after a slip, a trip, or a fall from standing height or less. It can refer to a wrist fracture or the devastating hip fractures. Patients with serious fractures or fractures complicated by other conditions are admitted to rehabilitation centers or hospitals. For example, approximately 40% of hip fracture patients are admitted to rehabilitation hospitals, and 29% have other conditions such as dementia and stroke. And in this situation, informal caregivers play a critical role in patients' recovery and, in general, save the Canadian healthcare system around 66.6 billion with a B annually. However, the experiences and needs of caregivers for patients admitted to rehabilitation settings with the fragility fractures are not well known. Our goal, we propose to examine the experiences and needs of informal caregivers of older adults admitted to a rehabilitation hospital with the fragility fractures. Based on this research, we will develop interventions to support caregivers and improve their health and wellness. Our research will hopefully address specific aims, specifically, what is the role of the family in determining who becomes a caregiver? How do caregivers prepare for the patient's discharge? What is the experience of caring for a patient transitioning from home to a rehabilitation hospital, and vice versa? How do caregivers use and access health services for care recipients? And in order to answer all of those questions, the questions drove the method, and the method that we're going to use is phenomenology. Basically, this is a qualitative phenomenological study that will run over 2 years, where we're going to recruit male and female caregivers of patients. They will be recruited through hospital admitting database, a social worker, and poster flyers on the orthopedic units and amputee clinics, and in care facilities special for dementia and stroke patients. Approximately 60 caregivers will hopefully be recruited and interviewed through one-to-one interview within 4 weeks of patient discharge, and then after 1 year. We will be using, during the interviews that we will record and transcribe verbatim, we will be using concepts of instrumental care and emotional support, and we will highlight trends based on sex, gender, and race. Expected outcomes from this research. We are expected to explore the role of the family in negotiating who becomes the primary caregiver. Second, preparations made by caregivers for patients transitioning from home to hospital. Tasks, behaviors, and emotional aspects of care provided by the caregivers. And finally, how caregivers navigate the healthcare system for patients' care. Thank you very much. I welcome any questions.
Thanks so much, Mohammed. We have a couple minutes here for questions. Any questions for Mohammed? Mike, go ahead.
Hi, Mohammed. A great presentation. I really liked it. I think at the beginning there, where you mentioned the importance of the qualitative, that initial exploratory descriptive component of your research. My question is, has that always been involved, or is that something that you've noticed and realized it was a bit more important in the research process as you developed into this successful career?
You mean using qualitative methods?
Yeah, correct.
It's a very interesting philosophical question, because you probably are a quantitative researcher, and unfortunately, qualitative research sometimes is looked at as the soft kind of research. However, I would like to remind myself first, and remind everybody else, that every good idea starts with individual observation. Even qualitative research that is deductive starts somewhere in the inductive milieu. We cannot do deductive reasoning without first starting with inductive reasoning. And I can relate to what you said earlier, like the weak muscles. Like, I'm sure there was tons of observation that led to generating a hypothesis, like what is the relation between upper neuron dysfunction and weak muscles? And that hypothesis was tested to generate some kind of a hypothesis to be used later on by scientists. But qualitative research, in my view, is the origin of all research.
No, thanks for that. It's something that I'm starting to realize too, that it's really that initial thought conversation. It's, humans are doing the research. It isn't just objectively done perfectly. So I'm starting to realize that more and more the benefits of those descriptive observation is needed before starting to generate that hypothesis. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mohammed, I have one. Given the fact that this is a longer career award, from a reflection standpoint, as you look at how you prioritize your time, for example, to make contributions to developing texts and practice, and then also doing high impact journal publication. Can you, if you were giving advice to a young researcher starting out in your field, what would you say about that kind of a career at a place like Mount Royal in terms of making decisions about how to place your limited time across those different buckets?
I would first recommend to colleagues and students to aim high. Don't underestimate the knowledge we generate at Mount Royal. The human resources we have at Mount Royal are highly capable. And so I'll give you a personal example. When I first finished my PhD, I wanted just to get published. But then one of my supervisors echoed this to me and said, aim high. And I aimed to a very high impact journal in nursing, the Journal of Advanced Nursing. And when I submitted and I got the feedback that it was actually accepted, I had to read the email more than once to believe that, yes, it got accepted in that journal. And time and again, that is proven to be correct, because good ideas publish. Good ideas makes a difference and will continue to make a difference. It's not only just publishing, we're publishing ideas that are making a difference at the bedside. We are change agents when we're publishing in these high impact journals. So keeping that in mind continues to drive me to look for better ideas, to look for under-resourced, under-explored areas, because I know those ideas will get published and will fly.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we're bumping up against the top of the hour. Absolutely fabulous to hear from all of you today. Congratulations to everyone who was nominated and awarded. So exciting to have some interaction amongst researchers. Certainly encourage you, based on what you've heard today, to talk to each other. Going back to earlier comments, so many great ideas are spawned by understanding what someone else's research program looks like and where there may be connections or even points of disparity that drive new ideas. Thank you all for being here this afternoon, and there will be more information and bios posted on all of our awardees on the Research Recognition Awards website. Enjoy the rest of the day. Congratulations on making it to the end of the semester here today, and have a great weekend. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.